Oh, I'm John Heilemann.
And I'm Phil Mattingly. And with all due respect to Donald Trump's low-energy appearance with Stephen Colbert last night, it's good to have you back, bud.
Trump's really smart. He's really great. They actually use the word genius, but I won't say that. And Hillary, who's become very shrill. You know the word shrill? And I have better hair than he does, right? Do we agree? Do I have better hair than he does?
He has better hair than I do.
On the show tonight, a pontiff, a poet, and a potpourri of pedophagy. But first, our poll. Our latest Bloomberg Politics national poll shows that a quarter of Democratic voters support Vice President Joe Biden, who has surpassed Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders in the primary field. Hillary Clinton is just slightly above them at 33%, but this is the smallest lead against Biden in any national poll this cycle. It ain't over till it's over. Now, John, if you're each of these people this morning, you wake up 6 a.m., this poll comes off embargo. What are you thinking?
Well, first thing I'm thinking is I noticed that little Yogi Berra reference in the script that you just read, and I'm going
to.
I love having you on Yogi on the show. We're going to talk about him later. I'm thinking if I'm Hillary Clinton, I'm thinking I've been worried for weeks, and I'm even more worried now. I don't like the fact that my margin over Biden, who's not even in the race, has gotten this small. If I'm Bernie Sanders, I'm particularly bummed out because I'm not really even in second place, clearly, and the guy who's not running is in second place ahead of me within the margin of error, but he's still ahead of me. And if I'm Joe Biden, I'm thinking people have been telling me now for the last few weeks that I have to deal with my personal issues, but that the politics look pretty good for me to get in this race. This poll confirms that and makes that point even more strongly.
If I'm Hillary Clinton, I'm looking not at the top-line numbers. I'm looking at Joe Biden's favorability, which since April has ticked up 3 points, unlike any other candidate that we've polled here. Her favorability down 10 points since Iowa. She's been running. She's been under the microscope. Joe Biden has not. This is a great number for him as he considers this right now. But how realistic is this in the grand scheme of things? I think that's a question worth raising.
Yeah, look, the other thing, if you're Hillary Clinton, if you're looking for a reason to feel good about this poll, if you're looking to try to salvage something out of all this rubble, you look at this and you say, you know, maybe Joe Biden doesn't run. And as his number has gotten larger, you know, if Biden decides not to run, she's going to claim most of those votes. Those are not Bernie Sanders votes, at least if you think about all the polling we've analyzed so far. So you look at Biden rising, and you look at Sanders maybe hitting a ceiling, and that gives you something to cling to amid all the gloom. All right. After putting out her prescription drug plan and finally coming out against the Keystone Pipeline yesterday in Iowa, Hillary Clinton once again found herself grappling with the issue that just won't go away. Exhibit A, our colleague Del Wilbur's scoop for Bloomberg that the FBI has recovered both work-related and personal emails from Clinton's private server. Exhibit B, contrary to Clinton's repeated claim that she turned over her emails to the State Department after a normal routine records request, the Washington Post reports that State Department officials are now saying that the thing that made them ask for her email was the discovery that she used a private server. At a meeting with the Des Moines Register editorial board yesterday, our man John McCormick captured Clinton unable to explain away that Post story, or explain it at all for that matter. You can observe a lot just by watching.
You know what? You're telling me something I don't know. All I know is what I have said. And what I have said is it was allowed. The State Department has confirmed that. The same letter went to, as far as I know, my predecessors. And I'm the one who said, hey, I'll be glad to help. I mean, we'll give you additional, information as we get it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Phil, these are two big stories, but on a political scale of political consequence, are these just incremental advances in the email story, or are these monumental advances in the story?
So I'm going incremental, and I've shifted a little bit over the last 24 hours as I've been trying to dig in and parse wording and see what statements are. I think the monumental thing here is the last 2 days, policy-wise, for Hillary Clinton have been 2 huge days. You know, we talked about the pharmaceutical drug plan she had yesterday. Not only was there a plan, a significant plan that has Democratic support, but she also went after villainized a hedge fund guy and got him to back off a specific price on a specific drug. That's a big win for them. Then you have a health care plan more rolled out today. Then you have an 840-word Medium post explaining her Keystone Pipeline position and a pivot into her energy plan. And we're all talking about emails. And so I don't know if that's a reflection on the political press on the whole, but that's a problem, and that's the problem that's been consistent over the last couple months.
I won't go so far as to say monumental or colossal, but I will say this Del Wilbur story, which we've all wondered, was the server wiped clean, or were these emails merely deleted and they would be able to get deeper into the system? We don't know yet whether they've got all of those personal emails, the 30,000 that she said she deleted. But the fact that they can get some of them, it's a very dangerous development for her, because it raises the specter that beyond the FBI's investigation, now congressional Republicans will try one way or the other to drag her personal email into public. There's a reason why she deleted those emails. We're not sure exactly what it is. But if those emails get into the public, that is a new phase of this potential scandal. Could be very dangerous.
And almost a certainty if Hill Republicans get a hold of them. Yeah. No question about it. Today, the Pope met President Obama at the White House and spoke to 15,000 people on the South Lawn.
The excitement around your visit, Holy Father, must be attributed not only to your role as Pope, but to your unique qualities as a person.
As the son of an immigrant family, I'm happy to be a guest in this country, which was largely built by such families. Climate change is a problem we can no longer be left to a future generation.
Now, in that poll we released today, we also asked about the Pope's positions and found that not only do people really love the Pope, but the future ain't what it used to be. Now, they agree with him on major issues and the direction the church is going with them. For example, they support the direction the Pope has taken on women in the church, on priests forgiving abortions, and on his refusal to judge gay people. But the one issue he loses on, and he loses big on this issue, is people cause global warming. Now, John, why is that?
Well, look, I mean, there's two. The easy answer would be to say that these other issues are issues where there's been what has been traditionally considered church doctrine involved, and people think that is the Pope's realm. He's allowed to have a view on that. Climate change, they think, is not in the church's realm. He disagrees with them about that, but people say, hey, the Pope shouldn't be sticking his nose in on that issue. I think it's actually even more fundamental than that, which is to say that these are all highly charged, polarizing, ideologically freighted issues. But now in our society, as controversial as gay marriage once was, abortion once was, and still is controversial to some extent, global warming is now the most polarizing, the most controversial political issue, and that is why we end up seeing this kind of rejection of the Pope having an opinion on that matter.
And the surprise today for me was that the Pope didn't hold his fire at all. He went straight at climate change while he was talking about it, and actually was effusive almost in his praise of the president for using his executive action to try and address climate change as an issue. That in and of itself is enough to infuriate Republicans, infuriate conservatives. I think people misperceive the idea that he is totally shifting the church on a doctrinal level, but on this issue specifically, people are very wary of the direction that he's taking.
Right, well, it's also a totally new thing.
Yeah.
Just a totally new thing. Takes people a while to get used to that. All right, it is deja vu all over again. A government shutdown is on the horizon. Tomorrow, the Senate will start grappling with a bill to keep the federal lights on, but ultimately, the upper chamber is all but sure to pass such a bill. The problem is the House, where Speaker John Boehner will put up a funding bill for a vote before the money runs out next week. We know that for sure, but Phil, what we don't know is whether that bill will pass or not, or whether the government will shut down. So, you live in Washington, D.C. You cover these things really closely. What say you?
There will not be a government shutdown.
Oh!
I know. Look, that's a risky proposition to say that.
You believe in the confidence.
A full 7.5 days before the deadline, I'm willing to go out on a limb and say there will not be a shutdown.
You believe that our elected representatives are competent enough to keep the government from shutting down, and that the Republican Party has its stuff together enough that it's able to get over the various fissures within the party.
I'm putting a lot of faith in the Pope's joint session of Congress tomorrow. Just totally shifting and molding minds.
The Pope's going to put forward a CR, and it's going to pass it. Clean CR tomorrow, put down by the Pope.
In truth, I think, obviously, as is always the case, the Republican conference has real problems right now going forward in the House. And John Boehner has a real problem. But I also think that leadership has coalesced around the fact that they simply can't shut down the government. And a clean CR is really the only pathway forward. There are other options on the table, and they will convince enough Republicans, as is always the case with these situations. Yeah. They'll convince enough Republicans, and Nancy Pelosi will get Democrats, and they will pass a funding bill for a certain period of time, and then they will move on to have the fight at a later date. It always happens. It will happen this time.
I do not like ever agreeing with you under any circumstances whatsoever. Right. I think you're probably right, but only probably right. I think there's a higher probability of a shutdown than a lot of people think right now because of the fact that the House Republican caucus is such a mess.
I'll take probably. That makes me feel good about myself. You have two options right now. You can stay with us, or you can change the channel. And if you are not sure what to do, here's some advice. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. We'll be right back.
Our guest tonight is our polling expert, Ann Selzer. Last time we had her on the show, it was impossible to get a conversation going because everyone was talking too much. And thanks for coming back. This Bloomberg Politics National poll, Phil mentioned earlier the thing that he would worry about if he were Hillary Clinton is some of the favorability numbers. I want you to dig into those favorability, unfavorability numbers and tell us what caught your eye.
Well, what caught my eye is the change. With the overall American public with Hillary Clinton, I mean, there's speculation about what the heck is going on with her campaign. Will Joe Biden get in? Her favorability numbers dropped 10 points. And when we look just at Democrats, because she's going to say, you know, my people are with me. And they are. She has a 70% favorability rating, but Joe Biden's is 80.
Right.
So he's really up there. Bernie Sanders is lower, but it's because 35% don't know enough to say how they feel about him yet on a national basis.
Now, 80% favorability for the vice president among Democrats is extremely high, and I would venture to say maybe as high or higher than it has ever been for Joe Biden. We don't have the records on this, but my guess is that that's true. How fast do you think that that number would drop once Biden got into this race?
Okay. Predictions are hard, especially about the future. It just it remains to be seen how he plays this game. It's all on him. He's done it twice before, and I think that gives him a big advantage. In fact, he's run against Hillary Clinton before, so he knows the game that he's getting into. He'll have thought that through.
People forget about that sterling 1% of the Iowa voters that he had in 2008.
Yes.
When you dig in on Secretary Clinton's numbers, where is she losing support?
Well, she's actually lost some support among women, and this is supposed to be the group that's going to buoy her scores. She is down to having just a 4-point advantage over Bernie Sanders with women. She gets 35%, he gets 31% of women. Now, where have they gone? Right. They've gone, really, as far as I can tell, my speculation, into the not sure category. Right. They're just backing off. It means that they're still there in order to be cultivated. They've not sworn allegiance to another candidate, but they're just holding their powder, I think, right now.
That seems like this gender thing seems surprising to me because we've heard for months now, Bernie doing well with men, but not so well with women. Hillary doing better with women. But now they're basically running even with women. That seems kind of incredible to me.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. It's really kind of remarkable. Do you have any idea what might be driving that?
I think it is what the story has been all along. Yeah. And to me, just again as an observer, the preseason is over, and we're starting to see candidates dig in now and campaign for real. On the Republican side, it's meant a couple have left the race. On the Clinton side, it meant she's now talking policy in a way and holding events in a way she was not doing before. So game on.
We also asked people, Democrats and Republicans alike, everybody independents, we asked them all whether they thought Joe Biden should get in the race. What we learned there?
This is one of the most fascinating findings in our poll, I think. 47% overall said he should get in. Well, you might think that's being driven by Democrats wishing for him to get in as an alternative. It's 52% of Democrats, not that much higher, and Republicans are right on the average, with 47% saying they wish Joe Biden could get in. My question for you is there a different rationale between Republicans and Democrats, each having a different advantage for him to get in?
Oh, I think there almost certainly is, just in the sense that I think Democrats who want to get him in want him to get in because they think they either want to vote for him or because they think he'd be good for the race and good for the competition. A lot of Republicans dismiss Joe Biden out of hand. You know, the Republican view of Joe Biden is he's a clown. So they may be registering some strategic voting in this case. What do you think about that, Phil?
I think that there's something to the fact that these Republicans want him to get in the race. I think they like that. I do want to ask one question, though, on the Pope. He's the most popular guy in the world, maybe. What stood out to you when you looked at those numbers?
Well, when we looked at the issues and where people think is a good direction for the Catholic Church to go, and you talked about this a little bit before, some of the issues that are more controversial, people really backed off of. And it wasn't, I looked at Catholics in terms of their view of this, and they line up pretty well. On climate change, it was a minority of Democrats who thought this was a good direction for the Catholic Church. So it really, he's not, I think, made the case on climate change as well as a church doctrine issue, and Democrats aren't buying it either.
That is super interesting, Ann Selzer. We could talk to you all day, but we don't have all day, so we're going to just thank you. And then when we come back, we're going to have Anita Dunn. If we ask her anything she doesn't know, she is not going to answer after this. With the Democratic nomination fight getting more and more interesting, Mark and I spoke the other day with former White House Communications Director Anita Dunn. We started by talking to her about her view of Hillary Clinton's vulnerabilities as a candidate. When we had you on the show in October, we talked about Hillary Clinton, and you said she would have two vulnerabilities. One would be an economic populist potential challenge. Another would be on foreign policy, right? So to the extent that she has shown vulnerability in the years since we last had you here, have those been the things that have made her vulnerable, or has her vulnerability primarily been elsewhere?
You know, it's interesting. I think part of her vulnerability has been because she's been seen as such a preemptive frontrunner for so long, which was not actually the reality. But because she was seen as such a preemptive frontrunner, that the entire process until quite lately has been a referendum on her, so that she has actually gotten general election coverage early in a primary season. Now, I think economic populism has turned out to be an area of vulnerability. That is, you know, the rocket fuel that is propelling Bernie Sanders' campaign, that and a sense of authenticity.
When we talked again last time in October, you said you thought it would be harder in this election for a progressive to mount a challenge against Hillary Clinton than it was for Bill Bradley, your former client, to mount a challenge against Al Gore back in 2000. Do you think that that's proven to be true? Are you surprised by the amount of traction that Bernie Sanders has been able to get against such a formidable frontrunner as Secretary Clinton?
Well, I think I was wrong when I said that. And I think I was wrong because I underestimated how strong those currents really are running in this party right now. And I will say I don't think I was totally wrong, because I was one of a very small number of people in the New Yorker about a year ago who said there's going to be a challenge to her no matter what. Right. But the reality is that, especially with young people, they feel such a disconnect from this political process. And I think that people like Senator Sanders, who so clearly are operating from a strong set of principles they've held for a very long time and who don't sound like typical politicians, have a huge advantage.
It strikes me, from looking at the way Senator Sanders has conducted himself, the way Hillary Clinton's favorable, unfavorable is not in the best place, that it will be very difficult for her to go after him. Do you share that view?
I think it's going to be very difficult for people to take this personal directly against each other, whoever it is.
Anita, you've been talking about and thinking about Joe Biden possibly running. Let's say he got in the next couple weeks and everything went great. Just talk us through October, November, December, January. What's his most linear path to the nomination?
He'd be getting in very late with very little organization, and that is a huge thing for the Biden campaign or potential campaign to consider. But what we are entering is the period of engagement. And I think that the path for any candidate right now, whether it's Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee, or even, should he choose to run, Vice President Biden, is one where you figure out, how are you going to use the debates? How are you going to use the dinners? How are you going to use the joint appearances? How are you going to use your personal appearances? How are you going to use shows like this one to go out there and engage people and make your case for your path?
Up in New Hampshire, I believe, this weekend, the chairwoman of your party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was heckled by a crowd of Democrats. There should be more debates, according to many Democrats. The chairwoman has been adamant that there will not be more than the 6 currently sanctioned DNC debates. Do you think she should relent and either sanction more debates or remove the penalties from unsanctioned debates?
Well, in full disclosure, I work with the DNC.
Yeah.
So, but I will also say that anybody who worked for Barack Obama in 2008 is not going to sit here and say, oh, you really need 25 debates. You actually don't need that many debates. And there are plenty of opportunities for candidates to go out there and to talk to voters. And one of the reasons we have small states at the beginning of this process is so that candidates can do personal campaigning, not through television.
You'd agree, though, that Senator Obama got better as the debate schedule he got deeper into the debate schedule, number one. And number two, that as many people of your colleagues told us, and have said it many times, that though that long stretch of debates was grueling, it prepared him well for the general election debates that he had with John McCain.
I actually would think that there's a little revisionist history maybe going on with a few of my colleagues, because I don't think that the primary debates really did prepare him all that well for the general election debates. It wasn't until quite late that they even became one-on-one debates, for example.
Just to be clear, you think 6 is enough? There should be no more. 6 is enough.
You know what? I think if the party
I think no one's advocating 25, by the way.
Well, but where do you draw the line, John? Where do you draw the line?
I'm not sure, but again, it does seem to me that just to place this cap on it in this way and say, well, we can see that the choice is either 6 or 25. That seems like a kind of a straw man argument in order to try
and that's
because 25 sounds ridiculous, right? So maybe why not 10?
Okay, so John, why not 10? Maybe the party at the end of the day decides if the process is moving along and keeps going on, that they should add debates for some of the later states.
Right.
I guess I would say to you, why should 2 states get 2 or 3 debates apiece and 48 states get none, or 46 states get? Once you start going down to it, listen, there may end up being more debates because the process could stretch out to June as it did in 2008. There could end up being fewer debates if the process ends early, if somebody just sweeps. But I think that 6 is a good number right now. There are plenty of other opportunities people have, and at the end of the day, candidates need to take advantage of every opportunity.
Our thanks to Anita Dunn. When we come back, R.I.P. Yogi Berra. Take it with a grain of salt. 90% of our show today was about politics. The other half is about Yogi Berra, the most famous catcher in the history of baseball and an off-cited political philosopher. I'd like to say that if you don't go to people's funerals, they won't go to yours. So we hope Yogi's funeral is crowded, not too crowded, or nobody will be able to go. And if those Yogi quotes made you smile, then you might enjoy a few more, courtesy of some of our friends in the media and politics rackets.
There was once a very quotable baseball player named Yogi Berra. And Berra once famously said, "It's deja vu all over again."
In the words of the great Yogi Berra, they're just deja vu all over again.
Deja vu all over again.
Deja vu all over again.
All over again. Deja vu all over again.
As Yogi Berra would say, it's like deja vu all over again. One hot air balloon landing in West Little Rock, and not for the first time.
As Yogi Berra said, it's getting late early, so as we're getting these shorter days, it's still dark.
I think it was Yogi Berra who said, "It ain't over till it's over."
Yogi Berra, it ain't over till it's over.
Yogi Berra once famously said, "It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future."
There's a very apropos saying by Yogi Berra, baseball was 90% mental, 50% physical, and oil is behaving just like that.
Well, for Hillary Clinton here in Columbus, tomorrow, it's going to be deja vu all over again.
For me and Phil and everyone here at Bloomberg Politics, sayonara.